Stand by. All right, we're recording so we can publicize this after, just in case anybody was flying or wasn't able to attend for any reason. We also would encourage those that are not part of the union or union membership, any managements, feel free to excuse yourself now, as this is a protected union hall type of space. So again, thanks for joining us. We got a few big topics to cover, and we didn't do one in December, so we figured we'd have one now to catch everybody up. We will turn it over to, where we're going to start. Ian, let's start with you, buddy.
Oh boy, jeez. All right. CQ 2024, as many of you have heard, maybe you haven't, we're back in person. We'll be doing a union presentation during your CQ lunch on day one. We're providing lunch, so please join us for that. Lunch right now, we're using Angelina's box lunch. It's a catering company that has often been used at the Ops Center. It's the most convenient, delicious option that we can bring to you. Currently, the plan is right now it'll just be a variety assortment of sandwiches, chips, cookies, that sort of thing. There is the possibility to have individual ordering, which I think I posted about on Facebook. After the first couple ones, we realized that that's a little bit it's a little bit involved. It's an extra step for everyone to do. So for the time being, there'll just be an assortment of stuff there for you. I think that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. With Derek leaving, he was our negotiations chairman. So we had to fill that role, and Joel Eisenfeld stepped in as far as negotiations chairman. So he's leading that committee now. So he'll talk about negotiations and a few hotel transportation issues.
All right. Well, as far as negotiations go, we did not meet in the month of December for our negotiated agreement with the company. We will be meeting this month in about 2 weeks. We expect to finish 2 additional sections, hopefully, in the month of January. Those are going to be union security and time off without pay. As far as the negotiations go, I plan to carry on as Derek was with taking gains anywhere that we can, not accepting any losses in the contract. It's not time for concessions of any kind. We have lots of leverage given the way the industry is, so we plan to keep carrying on as we were. As far as hotels go, we met with the company yesterday for our annual negotiation on, our monthly negotiation for grievances, and we've had numerous hotel issues with transportation, quality of hotels, interruptions to rest, from elevators being broken, hotel rooms being loud, you name it, we've had it. The company's answers, specifically Carlos, was to call and get a different hotel. So please utilize that. That was his instruction to the pilot group, was if a hotel is not meeting standards, if you're unable to get rest, any of those issues occur, simply call crew scheduling and get a different hotel. Also, if your rest is interrupted anytime, if you cannot begin your rest, call crew scheduling and advise them that your rest has not started or it was interrupted and you need to reset your rest for an additional 10 hours. With transportation, please use the Uber codes. If transportation is reliable and it's showing up and it's adequate, that's fine. But if you are sent a taxi that is small and you don't fit well into the car, wait, call for the Uber code, get an Uber, and then reset your rest to start when you get to the hotel. Likewise, if transportation is just not reliable and you're needing to wait, the contract says 25 minutes from block in, the transportation needs to be at the curb. An example of this would be Seattle, where we know for a fact that the transportation will not be there 25 minutes from block in. So one of the 2 pilots, typically I have just call for an Uber code immediately after doing your checklist, and have that code already there so you can have an Uber and not have to wait when you get down to that area. Other than that, hotel reports, everything that we presented to the company yesterday that were clear violations of the minimum hotel standards, their standard response was and always has been, we don't see very many reports on this particular hotel or hotels, so there is no problem. We understand that it's incredibly frustrating to continue to fill out hotel reports and then have that same hotel remain as our overnight hotel. But if hotel reports aren't filled out, the company uses that as their excuse to not make changes. So please, fill out hotel reports for every issue, no matter how small. I also encourage you, because it is a metric of how many reports per night, or how many nights we use a particular hotel. If you have, for example, 3 issues in a hotel room on one given stay, like a shower issue, transportation, and something else, fill out 3 separate reports, and that way we're moving those numbers up, to, really demonstrate how many issues there are with a particular hotel. I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Joel. I did want to share one screen, so hopefully you guys are seeing the communications that come out after negotiation session. They usually hopefully come out within a couple of days following that. So as always, there's a status report page that's a chart that accompanies that communication and always tells you what we've tentatively agreed to, also what's proposed and what's currently negotiating on the table and what we haven't gotten to yet. So hopefully you're all seeing that and checking it as we go, and you can always reach out if there's any questions or comments about that. Again, Joel's the new chairman, so he's the point, but you're certainly welcome to check in with any one of us. So let's go to Devin.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. We've noticed there's been a couple people recently who weren't being awarded their earned paid day off. So if you don't call in sick for 6 months, you get a PDO, which is worth 4 credits if you take it. And it pulls out of your short-term disability bank. It's in the contract. It's technically not legal as far as Washington state law is, because it
Incentivizes not.
it incentivizes not taking sick time, which in turn penalizes you for taking sick time. So we tried to negotiate an MOU for the company. This year, we were in negotiations, we got really close to the end of it, and the company said, we don't want to do anything with this policy, and if someone files a complaint with Washington State, then so be it, and we'll deal with it in the court. So, regardless, it's still in the contract. We were not able to reach an agreement with the company on what to do instead of paid day off. So if you don't call in sick for 6 months, you should be awarded that through an automated process. But we've heard from a couple people that it wasn't actually showing up for them. So if you earn a PDO, I believe it'll be on the following month, on the 20th paycheck is when it'll show up on there. So if you're not seeing it by then, reach out to us or reach out to your base chiefs, and if you aren't able to get resolution, we'll grieve it. We just had success with one grievance going through that we brought to their attention that someone wasn't awarded a PDO, and the grievance was settled with them awarding the earned PDO into their bank. So
Do you want to cover real quick how did they check? An easy way to check.
check on Ames for the PDO.
When's the last time they called this?
Yeah, you would look at the last, so you would just go back. I always go back in months and see when was the last time I called them sick, and then 6 months from that day is when you should earn it. And then if you want to take a PDO, you would just reach out to the base chief pilot in your base, and by the 25th of the month, 2 months prior for pre-awards, you can do it. I believe you can do them after the bid as a post-award potentially.
No,
No, you can't.
pre-awarded, right?
Okay, yeah, so pre-awarded on the 25th, 2 months prior, so. If anybody has questions about those or unsure if you should have earned one, just reach out to the Stewards Horizon email and we can help you out with that. The other thing that I want to talk about was the deadhead settlement. So we're still getting deadhead grievances for people not being upgraded when their seats available in first and premium class. We are still working on a settlement with the company for all of those grievances. It's a group grievance. So we're encouraging people to still be vigilant, file grievances if you weren't upgraded when you should have been. And we are hoping to very soon have a settlement of some monetary value for all of the pilots who were harmed in the upgrade or not being upgraded, essentially. So not having the company follow the LOA. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Devin. We'll turn it over to Michael. Michael had an update too, as far as the PDO stuff, so you can cover that as well as us.
Yep, we'll cover the PDO stuff, then we'll get into our wonderful flying metrics for March. First of all, with the PDO, again, just to recap, the company doesn't want to follow the law, but they also don't want to follow the contract either. So, if you want to be of service and they don't give you your PDO, you could do what Devin said. That would work too to get your PDO, or you could be the person that files the complaint with the state for breaking a state law. On top of that, there's laws in Washington and Oregon and California that make this illegal. So, pretty much all our bases should be covered apart. I don't think Idaho has that law yet. So, but if you live in the other bases, Medford, Portland, Seattle, Spokane, did I miss any?
Cambridge now.
Yeah, no, we have like 15. Oh, and Payne. Yeah, I forgot Payne. If you're based there, they don't give you your PDO. You are well within your rights to file with the state to get that ball rolling, because as Devin said, their solution is we'll just break the law as long as we want and then let it play out in the courts. So, okay, to our flying metrics. I'm sure you all received that newsletter, the crew scheduling, saying that we still have the longest route segments other than SkyWest. They look at the longest route segment in terms of miles, but since we're not Southwest and are not paid by the mile, we don't care about miles, we care about block. So I have the stats here on the computer for you that I'll read you for our March rotations. Okay, so total block length for the month of March for Horizon is 11,235 and some change. SkyWest is 11,183 and half hour. Block per aircraft per day for us is 9.35. Block per aircraft per day for SkyWest is 9.51. Aircraft or legs per aircraft per day for us 5.9. For SkyWest it's 5.9. Here's the big one. Block per leg for us it's 1 hour and 38 minutes average. For SkyWest it's almost 2 hours. So they are looking at, we have the longest routes based off of how many miles tick down on the MFD. So not block length. So that newsletter is not entirely accurate. We are not winning against SkyWest at the moment. It's near, pretty close for March. In February, SkyWest was the clear winner in all categories, and the same thing with January. So, we get this from our wonderful scheduling committee chair, Bill Bowling, every month. And I think now we'll just continue to update you with those statistics every pilot chat to show you what the actual metrics that matter to you mean. So
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, with a lot of things in life, it depends on how you spin things. So you could look at one stat and point to, hey, we're doing great. But look at a completely different stat and realize that it's not apples to apples. So we'll continue to push. Again, if you need a SkyWest bag tag, not in support of SkyWest, but for us to be more flying than SkyWest, we have those. Please let us know. We'll get you one. But we continue to push the company every month as we move forward to get that flying and the better flying routes. So thanks to our scheduling committee, Michael, and those guys that are pushing it. So let's move over to, we got left, Bo.
Oh, just real quick.
Oh, you're not Bo.
I know. Based on what you said, if you know, he's a very quiet guy and he's reserved, but if you see Bill Bowling at work, give him a pat on the back and say thank you. He works his ass off to try to get our flying back. He is a messiah of this scheduling stuff. So if you see Bill, tell him thank you. Same thing with Scott Sylvester. They work very, very hard to try to get us our flying back and to build us lines that don't suck.
Agreed. Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Bo.
Sorry, Bill.
Yeah, all good. Again, talk to you guys a little bit about fatigue stuff. Currently it's been great seeing that we've been having more fatigue reports. Great and not great. Great because you guys are getting paid not to fly and making the safe decision. Not great because our schedules suck, which means you have to call out fatigue, or we're in crappy places where you can't good enough rest. But long story short, there is going to be a comm that's coming out early next week, probably on Monday, a little debrief of how the fatigue process works and some recommendations from us. At the beginning of the comm, it's pretty simple. One of our biggest recommendations right now is if you do call out fatigue before you send your fatigue report to the company, please send it to us to look it over. There have been a couple reports that have been self-damning, and to some extent, they have included items in their reports that could lead to other investigations by the company, especially when it comes to sicknesses and health related items. So we want to make sure you guys are protected before you send in your reports, because those reports go directly to the company. And as soon as you send that in, it's out of our hands in terms of what they can do with the rest of the report. In terms of the actual fatigue report, in that column, it's going to go over how the whole process works for that. It also talks about fatigue or sickness and kind of details that. But one of the big things too is please send us your reports. There's a new email up. It's going to be fatiguehorizon@apa1224.org. Please send us those. We'll look it over and we can give you advice on how to clean it up before you submit it with the company, which just increases your chances of getting pay guaranteed for your fatigue call. The other thing too is it's a really fine line of including enough details in your report to get pay guaranteed for it. But if you put in your report, hey, I was too tired, I didn't sleep well, each of these reports, I have to try to fight and argue with the company every month to try to get you pay guaranteed. And that gives me no leg to stand on trying to get you pay guaranteed for it. So you need to have enough details to give me a leg to stand on to get you pay guaranteed for it, but not too many extra details that hurt your case in terms of getting paid, which is why we recommend that you send us your reports before you submit them with the company. And just as a quick reminder, you are supposed to submit them within 72 hours after your fatigue call, but luckily the company hasn't been too strict on that recently, and they're currently accepting all of them. However, if it gets too much out of hand, they might start trying to crack down on that, which is not good. So I think that's all that I got in terms of that. Please read the comm when it comes out. Lots of good information. If you have questions, feel free to email me or the Fatigue Horizon email.
Thanks, Bill. I'll cover one thing before we turn it over to John Dodd for some safety information. You should have received notification. If you saw it, hopefully you did, in February 27th, in Portland at the Sheridan. I see Alan's online. Going to embarrass him for a moment, but there's an award, Safety Excellence Award ceremony and dinner being held in both Emil and Alan's honor in Portland on the 27th. There is a link to reserve. We're having the award ceremony and a free dinner. I just posted that in the chat. There's a link there. We'd encourage all to attend. It's free for all pilots to attend. The two of them and our executive board from the local 1224 and executive council here will all be in attendance. Do a presentation for them and free dinner. So it should be a pretty decent dinner. I've seen the menu. I'm not cooking it, but it's there and it's free. So please, if you have the when the bid comes out, if you haven't already scheduled, please use that link that's in the chat. We'll send out some reminders as well. We have a cap as far as how many people can be in attendance. Hopefully we have to raise that cap, but please get your RSVPs in as soon as possible. And yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no plus ones. It is free for the pilots, but if drop your kids and families off at Taco Bell before. Anyway, it's there. We would encourage all to attend. Unfortunately, this event happened, but fortunately, we had an awesome crew that managed the situation, and we feel it's important to recognize them and have a dinner in support of them. So please RSVP. I'm going to turn it over to John Dodd. John, if you're there, if you want to handle some safety. Oh, sorry.
Real quick, Henry, can you scroll up in the chat? I think there was something from
No, Todd was just saying he's telling ground instructors not to bowl chocolate.
Yeah.
oh, the CQ food.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's there for CQ and anybody tries to come in and get in on that food, just slap their hands, tell them to go away.
Thank you for that, Todd. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. That food's for CQ and CQ only, so nobody else should be coming in and taking that food out of here. off your plate.
John, if you're there, we'll go ahead and turn some time over to you. See, you turned your camera's kind of on. You see a black screen, but turn. Hey, there you are.
Should be better. Yeah.
You're on.
Thanks for the opportunity. Henry, I'm guessing that you would like me to talk about the safety metric for OPR.
That and any other safety issues you might have for IBT, we appreciate it.
Okay. I'll get into that in a second, but just to kind of double back on fatigue. So I would like to echo what Bo had said in there, is that good reports make all the difference. And what you put in your reports can make or break it for you. Another thing that can really help is to talk about the appropriate things you did to mitigate fatigue and or to report fatigue, and that shows that you're being a responsible professional in addressing it. So another thing I noted going through the latest compliance CBTs, that unfortunately the fatigue education awareness training, even though it says 2024, did not get updated. Clearly has old information in there, including things like having to file within 48 hours instead of 72. But continue to participate, continue to take care of yourselves. Of course, the most important thing is that we're preventing fatigue and giving us an opportunity as an organization to try and address the systemic factors that can contribute to that. Regarding the OPR metric for the coming year, actually back in 21, the company started using a safety metric in the OPR, in addition to other performance. I and others have kind of consistently disagreed with the notion or the theory behind, and even recognize that there are unintended consequences that come when you start trying to put a monetary bonus on something as important as safety. So this last year, hard landings were the safety metric, and I have learned that in the coming year, the company is going to continue to have hard landings as the safety metric. And unfortunately, after multiple inputs and attempts by FOQA to suggest that if they're going to continue with that same safety metric, that there needs to be adjustments made to that to fit the principles of their OPR purposes. The company has elected to continue to hold the same threshold for a hard landing. The only thing that's different going forward is that FOQA late this last few months was able to determine and learn that the company's method of capturing hard landings under that safety metric was less than accurate. And so in light of that, the FOQA team has agreed to take on that and ensure that it would be coming directly from FOQA out of a monthly summary. These are de-identified. It's all held confidential. But that way we can ensure at least if the company wants to continue with this, at least we can ensure that it's more accurate method of doing so. Could have a little bit of back and forth here with Henry to get his thoughts on it, but the challenge that we have here And one of the things that I wanted to encourage our pilots with is that it's not FOQA that is the enemy here. It's the company that has chosen to use safety as a metric and has chosen to use hard landings and the at the value that they're using them. So while we disagree with it, that's their call. And hopefully going forward, we can continue to show them that the consequences of picking something that in many cases is actually part of doing business with this airplane. Hard landings, the hard landing threshold for the E-175 is lower than most other Part 25 121 aircraft out there in the world. So our pilots have to meet a lower threshold in order to not have a hard landing. And that's a component of it. Other aspects have to do with how the airplane is built that can contribute to it as well. And that's one of the reasons why we have expressed our concerns about using a metric that is set at a value that in many cases our pilots could do nothing different to move the needle on it. But it is what it is. And I can stand ready to answer questions if anyone has that.
John, I'll also throw in there that you kind of alluded to it, but we are trying to work with the company, Carlos management, to try to get their heads wrapped around this. But the OPR is not included in our CBA. It's non-contractual in the sense that we don't have any avenue to fight this. We know the data used is incorrect, and they are essentially taking money out of our pilots' pockets based on incorrect and incomplete data. So we are trying to work through the avenues that we can to get them to recognize. So what I would recommend for our pilots that attend the next pilot chat with the company is that I wouldn't be scared to ask them in a pilot chat and get their take on the difference in data that's being used, other than we're all about safety. We're all about safety. Well, that's great. So are we, but where are the bonuses? And if you're using the wrong data, how come you're not using the right data? So don't be opposed someone. They hear it from us all the time, but it would be helpful to know, for the company to know that the pilot group knows that the data is incorrect that they're using, and they're essentially taking money out of our pockets to save some money by using the incorrect data. So we always have John speak to the safety and the Switzerland of safety, and we try to keep him isolated from the other aspects. But in this rare circumstance, it kind of intersects a little bit. So I'll let him speak to the safety and keep him to Switzerland, and we'll certainly speak to the financial and political aspects of what the company's doing. So.
And I have a question for you, John. Is, to your knowledge, are any other 175 operators monitoring this hard landing data? And have you been aware of damage to a 175 because of a hard landing anywhere?
That's a good question, and the answer is no and no. In short, we have reached out and expressed the concern to a variety of other operators. By we, meaning both on the labor side and the company side. And the constant answer that we get back from other E-175 operators is no, we're not interested, or they look down at their feet and they move on. So they're not looking at hard landings to the degree that Horizon is looking at hard landings. And maybe it's hard for me to say why they will or won't actually talk candidly about their own experiences with hard landings. We do get a little bit of input from some on occasion. For example, we had input from another operator a while back that was seeing some of the same trends that we were seeing, where the design of the aircraft has to do with spoiler deployment on landing. And the spoilers can actually cause a hard landing. In that case, just operating as they're designed to can cause the acceleration G to spike. So there is a noted acknowledgement out there, but nobody's really tracking it or to the same degree that we are. It seems like the other operators are just saying what should be said really is in a lot of cases, except for the extreme hard landings, it's a cost of doing business with this airplane. On the other hand, I think maybe I'm forgetting the other part of your question.
I was just curious if there had been any noted damage to an aircraft because
Noted
of
damage, no. In fact, we had a pretty significant one a while back that was a value notably higher than our typical bandwidth of a hard landing. And in that case, even though the aircraft underwent significant inspection, there was absolutely no damage done to the aircraft. So no known history of hard landings causing damage.
Hey, John, any other safety or any other questions for John before we move on?
Yeah, I was curious, John. We went through a long period of time of trying to work on long landings. Does the company factor this in at all when I mean, seriously?
So yes, I continue to share that early on, our work on long landings was beneficial to safety. And our pilots have responded well. And we actually have a very tight grouping, and we can show over time, a significant improvement. However, there is always unintended consequences. And so if you over focus on hard landings, or excuse me, on long landings, the natural result is, okay, well, pilots will say, well, I don't want to be one of those. I don't want to, be called out for my long landing. So I'll work extra hard on landing earlier. And while no pilot sets out to have a hard landing, what that does is that it does increase the potential, the exposure to having a more firm landing. And this airplane, it's pretty subjective, or it's really difficult to tell up in the flight deck whether or not you've actually had a hard landing. It's quite common that pilots that we talk to had no idea, honestly, had no idea that it was actually registering at such a value that it did. So there is a direct tie, I believe, to if we're over focused on an early landing, we will increase our hard landing potential. For pilots that if you haven't seen it, I suggest going to a recent training video that was published on that took a lot of Fuqua's input on this. And we were concerned that in many of our runways out there in context where the pilots didn't really need to land very early, yet they still were. They were making efforts to land early. We're suggesting that pilots really kind of methodically think through their risk balancing in that. If you don't need to land early, don't make a concerted effort to do so. It's fine to land a little bit longer in many of the contexts out there. So I hope that answered your question, Chris.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. Appreciate it. It just seems like we get one thing under control and they're hyper focusing on the wrong thing at this point.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot more accidents happen from long landings than hard landings.
Yeah.
but I don't study it near as much as you do. So I know
Right.
you have a lot greater depth of knowledge on the subject.
There's always trade-offs. They always happen. And one of the problems, and this is a fundamental issue that I have with putting a bonus on a safety metric, is it unduly narrowly focuses the company in one direction, and it doesn't acknowledge unintended consequences. So,
Especially when one of those
Thanks, I appreciate it.
consequences is you try to land soft, you're gonna float.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris, for the question.
Thanks, Liston.
Hey, John, can you see the chat? We got one from Andrew that posted, if you want to open up the chat.
I will open the chat.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just wondering, I mean, if I don't know how many hard landings we have on record, but if we, after a while, we just show them like, hey, look, I mean, 100, 200, however many instances, and after the inspection, no damage. Do you think we reach a certain point in numbers where they just say, yeah, okay, I guess, we don't care so much anymore? That was my thought.
I like your thinking, and we do that. We've had those conversations about showing what is the real risk to the organization, and we will continue to have those conversations about the validity of the current metric and the way it's looking at it. In the bonus can be changed on a quarterly basis, so we'll continue those conversations, but we've had all of them and more.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. John, you got anything else?
I don't.
Okay. We always appreciate you joining us, appreciate more than the entire pilot group for what you do for us and the aviation industry as a whole for safety. So we'll continue to keep you on the island of Switzerland over there and keep you out of the fray. But again, this is one time where it kind of intersected. So we appreciate you joining us and talking about it. So from an EXCO position, we'll continue to do what we can using the metrics and the data that John and his team provide and fight the battle. But anyway, we just thought we'd keep you in the loop. So thanks, John. We appreciate you. Couple last minute things. We'll open up for any last questions that you guys might have. We are in the process. It's on our radar. We're going to start updating Comply 365 with more up-to-date data from the IBT. So in the IBT folder, you'll hopefully start to see some things that we'll be creating, such as how to file a grievance, and you can do it straight from there. So there might be some videos from time to time plugged in there, some bulletins or something in that IBT folder, but we're going to start updating that. Like how to file a grievance. It might be like one of the Rob's type video in there of a step-by-step process of actually how to file a grievance when this stuff happens. So we'll be working on that, and we'll continue to communicate as that goes along. The last thing for me, you should be receiving, if you haven't already, a letter in the mail to your place of residence that's listed with the union, a 3-page letter, kind of recapping the state of Horizon from 2023 and the things that we were working on with the company. There's a preview of it if you're a friend of QX Pilot Facebook group. They got posted yesterday, but you will be receiving it in the mail. It's a good, well, I wrote it, but it's I was gonna say it's a good read, but I don't want to say it like that. It's healthy to realize we're not doom and gloom, but we feel that it's always important to hear both sides of the issue. The company can go rah. We're all about safety. We're all about profit. We're all about long stage lengths for our crews and great hotels, and look how everything rosy is. How rosy it is, but it's also good to see the other channel of what's happening behind the scenes and the fights that we've had and or are having. So there's a few bulleted topics and issues in there that we feel that it affects your wallet, your pocketbook, and your quality of life. What the company has decided to not care about and or walk away from. And so when you get it, if you haven't already, please read it. Again, don't hesitate in pilot chats or when you see management or talk to management to continue to peddle information that that is not accurate. So just like these OPR bonuses and the data, I'm not calling anybody liars, but there is a tendency to push how everything's awesome. And sometimes, most of the time, it's not if you know behind the scenes. And so, as always, this executive council will provide the data, facts and figures for you to make up your own mind and how it applies to your own career path. We are not, we're just providing the data, and that letter is a good indicator of how 2023 went. Yeah, we got some good things done and we continue to work on them, but that letter and the bullet points in there are some big ticket items that we thought you should know of what happened in 2023. So take a look. I can't read your hand right now.
To be
Oh,
fair, Henry, you
yeah.
didn't write the whole thing, and I'll say that the LTE section is a very good read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you had a lot of misspellings. So I almost never rewrite, just kidding. Anyway, yeah, so in that topic, we've had some questions about taxes. And so we figured we'd throw it over to Ian. We're gonna wrap up here in the next 16, 17 minutes with some questions, but before we go and we pass it over to you with some questions, Ian, if you want to cover the tax issue as far as Washington-based pilots that has been showing up.
Yeah, so there, for those that are not aware, there's a new tax in the, that's a payroll tax in the state of Washington. Washington paid, what do they call it now, the family medical leave.
Yeah, something like that.
Some version of that. They keep changing names on things all the time, but there's effectively a new payroll tax that started for everyone January 1. You should have got an email about it from the company. They didn't send that email out till January 10th. I think after they realized they had made a mistake. They to Alaska. Yeah, they sent it to all the Alaska pilots. It was early December or something. Yeah. They sent it to them. Didn't notify any of our people. Kind of caught us by surprise. We've got a few questions in the last day or two about it being sort of double coverage with LTD. It's not entirely that. It's a leave that you can file with the state. The state will pay you a weekly payout for. It's really just like extended sick leave. It's not LTD. And our LTD isn't even LTD. It's loss of medical insurance. So it's not that at all. Basically, like if your spouse or your child's sick, it's just an extended sick leave that you can take that's paid out directly by the state. As far as how that would affect in a long-term scenario, say over 90 days, our LTD payments, we don't entirely know. We have our suspicions that the Hartford is going to have some issue with LTD payments with that. We've seen it with the Oregon law that's been in place a little bit longer. That's the issue that the Hartford needs to work out. So, but for the time being, what you need to know is if you either reside in or are based in the state of Washington, you're required to pay into that tax. That has nothing to do with the union or the company. That's a state law. If you don't like it, call the governor. I think we all don't like it, but it is what it is. Nobody has any control over that. If you live out of state and you're based in the state of Washington, the company has said yesterday, albeit this information was from Carlos, so I'm not entirely sure how accurate it is at this point. We've not vetted it fully. But he seems to be under the impression that if you live out of state, you're based in the state of Washington, you're paying that tax, you're eligible to receive that benefit from the state of Washington. Again, I don't know this yet. We have not had the time yet to fully vet this process. Our chief counsel from Local 1224, Paul Rutter, is aware of it, and I think we're scheduled to go over that with him possibly next week. Sometime in the next few weeks, we'll get to the bottom of exactly how this all affects everyone, and not just hearsay from Carlos.
I think you just covered it, but we had a couple questions pop up. Can I file a claim even if I live in another state?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. We don't know. Carlos said yes, so it's a hard maybe.
I think we've got kind of the same thing going on in Oregon. I noticed I had a new line on my first check in January for Oregon Family Medical Leave slash EE that I don't ever recall being there. So I don't think it's just Washington pilots. I think it's Oregon getting to share in on this too.
It is, yeah. And our question is if all our other taxes and how we're taxed is covered by the RLA based off of where we live, not where we're based, because our office is mobile, why is this one any different? So we're looking into that. We've talked to our attorney about it, and we will be tackling that in the very near future, trying to figure out just what it means. Because we were all surprised when we checked our paychecks and we're like, why do we have new taxes? And for three of us in the room, we're like, why are we getting taxed in Oregon? We don't live there. Yeah.
It was a big chunk, wasn't it? Yeah, I was surprised. And we got a raise too at the end of the month in December. I thought, oh, I'll see a little more, quite a bit less.
Yeah. Yeah. Joke's on you.
Hey, Chris Shoemaker, I'm gonna jump back up to you. What's your question, sir?
Well, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work. I know how difficult it can be. I think maybe I've been in your shoes for a little while. But some of the things that really disturb me are the references that the company refusing to sign an MOU. I'm assuming that had been negotiated and was in print and ready to sign. Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the socket, but that to me is at least negotiating in bad faith, if not outright a violation of law.
Well, it's hard to argue with tradition.
I would imagine. But a couple of the other things in there that you even mentioned were illegal. What is our plan going forward? What recourse do we have? Can we take that to the labor board and make a complaint against the company? I mean, I always sort of half-heartedly joke about Air Group arrogance, but this sure does seem to be the epitome of that term. And then I think that was really about it, because you'd covered the rest. So I'll just mute myself and take your response off the air.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the question. So it is like to Joel, if you didn't hear him, it's tradition, negotiating bad faith. The problem with these MOUs is they weren't part of any negotiations we're doing for the new CBA, and they weren't part of the old CBA. These were MOUs that we were trying to get through because of the financial or quality of life harm that our pilots experienced by the company doing X. And so we had been through negotiations. If you know, aside from, when I say negotiations, I say we also negotiate with, disciplinary issues or training issues or side MOUs to further the quality of life of pilots here, aside from Section 6, collective bargaining agreement negotiations. So when I say negotiate, we were negotiating these MOUs to correct the action of the company for something they had done in the past. So I'll just quickly reference the trip drop formula. When we won that arbitration, that was back in May. The arbitrator said, look, company, you got to fix it. You made up math. You're worse at math than pilots are, and you need to fix this formula. And they held on and held on and held on and tried to get away with it through the summer months and into the fall as long as they could, blaming it on Ames and eCrew that they couldn't fix that formula. Not a computer expert when it comes to programming, but a formula is a formula. So that was the reason behind it. So, all right, well, now you've continued to harm our pilots through these X amount of months, and let's get that fixed. So there was negotiations back and forth. We finally had gotten pretty close to a settlement off on it and signatures on the line. And then the company's just like, no, we're good. You have to live with it. So negotiating in bad faith, yeah. Are they required? No. But it was something that we were pushing to make sure that these harms were rectified. My company just doesn't want to do that. So that is in many cases along the way. So hopefully that answered your question. But it had nothing to do with Section 6. It was aside from that. But I'll leave that one there.
Hey, just real quick, Todd Henyon, you posted a comment about the performance metrics. Do you want to elaborate on that?
if you're still, you still.
Yeah, I gotta find my button here. I'm also doing the compliance training on the other screen here. Don't tell anybody.
Click, 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 click.
But no, the only thing I wanted to say there, and I do tell this to most of the classes that I talk to, especially the new hires, is that the $300 a month and that stuff, that's not your pay. That's gravy. It's nice when it happens. And please don't really alter your behavior to achieve it. You know, I feel like those incentives sometimes push us in different directions. They're all good goals. I like to leave on time and do, you know, land softly and all that. But I think when we start thinking about how is this going to affect my bonus, it gets in the way of making good decisions, which I think is pretty much what John was saying. I just had a long conversation a couple of years ago with a safety director who was struggling to decide what to use for the metric the following year. And I said, well, there's happiness. And then he laughed. But what is it that we produce as pilots that they can measure? And as you start thinking about that, as how do we turn that into money? You can see the whole premise, I think, is just flawed. I love that executives need bonuses and all that stuff, but I just don't want it to affect how we operate day to day. That's what I was trying to say.
I would agree with you on that. And to be clear, the executives are still going to get their bonuses. I think Ben just got a $3 million pay raise for 2024.
Oh, good. I was concerned.
So, I mean, our concern, yes, is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, even you, wise one, Mr. Dodd. Our concern is twofold. It's one, that they're using hard landings as a safety metric, but it's also that they are measuring hard landings incorrectly. So it's a double negative. They have, to my knowledge, they have some analyst who has no idea how an airplane works going into a spreadsheet that the Embraer automatically sends data to, and they're just keyword searching hard landings and not actually looking at the data. They're just seeing how many times hard landing shows up on a keyword search, and that's how they're measuring the metric.
To be more clear, it's actually not that. It is a manual transcription out of the AML to this other electronic format. So, you know, there's an opportunity there for words to get transcribed incorrectly. And then two, they're looking for a particular phase inspection in the narrative. And if you do a narrative search, that's also an inaccurate method to capture you know, how many of a particular event actually occurred. So
thank you, John. Sorry, yeah, when you first told us, I was so confused that I guess I got it wrong. So makes sense. Cody, to answer your question, I would assume riding a Peloton somewhere.
Hey, so to that point, I think John might have covered it, is that they are planning to use the same metric for your OPR, or our OPR for 2024. You know, hard landings again. So the next company chat that's coming up in a couple of weeks, someone other than us at this table and John, please ask them what's the point behind it. If the data is wrong that you're using to calculate, and why do we keep having something safety related attached to our OPR? It's confusing. It doesn't have to be confrontational, but just somebody asked Carlos while you're on the call. We'd appreciate that. We all love to hear Carlos talk and explain things.
Did anybody get Walter Flint?
No, I was just about to cover that.
Okay. No.
Hey, yeah, so Walt, thanks for joining us. We covered this topic yesterday with any improvements coming through next gen. Asked McNeiman at the table, are we through that? There was that dead period. So they launched it, then they had to wait to make sure that it was working. It was doing what it's working. Let me put that in quotation. It was working and doing what it should before they start having any kind of aesthetic or any kind of updates to the program. We are nearing that, is what she said. I think I can quote her as saying we're nearing that period. And then they'll start going through the list of things that they have, including the iPhone, how it looks and stuff on your display. So we've been told it's coming as of yesterday, and they're going to start working through that list. Hey, there's Walt. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Henry, thanks for everything you guys are doing. Are they going to engage with you all on how to improve it and what the display looks like this time, or are they going to do this in a vacuum?
We discussed that yesterday. Again, you'll see that in the letter as far as Ames. We would have liked to have been at the table to help them work through the launch, as opposed to letting it launch and collapse and then bring us to the table and say, hey, help. So we have that list and that ongoing conversation with them. So we hope to have that discussion before they launch it. But again, they are working through that list. And where on that list, we don't know what it looks like on your phone. But we asked them yesterday, hey, as new updates come online, with what you weren't able to do yesterday on Ames and what you can do today, if the company is going to announce that to the pilot group, because that would be helpful to know. I think they were kind of wishy-washy, and so we said, hey, at least tell us and we can tell the pilot group. So hopefully as they announce or as they update every one of those things that we'd like to see on Ames, they will let us know. But certainly the aesthetics of how it appears on your phone, for some of us, for most of us, it's been a nightmare. So we'd like to see that change.
And we additionally have brought another person on to scheduling whose sole role is pilot IT support help. He's a Payne captain, formerly worked for Nordstrom's in IT. So all the IT stuff with eCrew, Ames, any cell phone issues, whatever it may be, we have a person dedicated to that now. So that should help streamline the process.
We got 2 minutes left. Ian, you got
Two quick things, in case everyone's not aware, the company is bringing ATP, CTP in-house for new hires, so that'll no longer be a thing in Dallas. Meant to mention that earlier. The idea is to have new hire pilots when they're going through that program. They'll be in E175 sims, and that'll be helpful from the get-go. There'll be a solicitation out for, I think they're going to have a FO come in as an instructor, and then recent retirees, I think, are the two groups they're going after to instruct that program. And then what was the other one? Oh, Ethos. The company's in the process of replacing the Ethos CBT software for transitions, upgrades. That's supposed to be with the goal being done sometime, I think, early next year. Casey Duax has asked if the IBT would like to be involved in that process. We said yes. So you will no longer be going through a wildly inaccurate CBT program if you're going through any sort of transition upgrade with whatever we use it for. So two good things. That's all I got.
That's all we got, folks. We appreciate you joining us. Stay safe out there. If you have any questions, always direct them towards us. Make sure you keep your doors on the planes while you're flying. Too soon? But we appreciate you, what you do, for your support, and anything you need. Don't ever hesitate to contact any one of us or our awesome stewards. So you guys have a good one. Take care, and we'll see you in the funny pages.